Driving cars costs society a lot of money and a lot of environmental impact that we sort of hide. It's difficult to have those conversations with people because car marketing makes us feel like cars are just part of the fabric of society. God set the street design and God gave us cars to move around with, but it's not true. Car culture is reversible.
Once you get somebody on a bike, once they have that first commute, I really feel like that's the turning point. They start feeling better. They start losing weight. That's really inspiring stuff.
How you doing, Dan?
What's happening, Nick?
Oh, everything is good.
All right.
I want to go over some of the strategizing stuff that before our first guest comes on that we've been talking about with the Green New Deal and their transportation plan or lack of it.
Mm-hmm.
That you first brought up in your conversation with Joe Linton in our Streets blog episode.
Burning of fossil fuels is, a huge contributor to climate change, especially from transportation. And in our discussion with Joe, I was kind of like, it's a gut assessment, but I don't hear enough coming from groups such as Sunrise Movement about car usage and its contribution to climate change. We started to talk about what is the official policy stance of the Sunrise Movement vis-a-vis transportation. It really wasn't clear what the policy goals are, at least from my research. I think that's something we should be working on to get this, groups like the Sunrise Movement to come on board and sing the song of the, walkable, bikeable city and planning and so forth. The thing that I've noticed about transportation is I think there's a lot of confusion, and I think there's a lot of blurry lines when it comes to where people stand on transportation, especially car driving. You'll run into a lot of folks that will be progressive and liberal, etc. But when you start talking about taking away car lanes or making car driving itself more expensive or more difficult in favor of public transportation and walking and biking and so forth, they get upset because they see it as an attack on regular working folks. There's a lot of noise out there that if you sort of transform the streets to be less car friendly and more bike transportation and pedestrian friendly, you're putting a hardship on working class folks. So there's truth to that.
It's like with coal. It's like if you were going to stop using coal, who works in coal? Working class people, they lose their jobs. It's the same thing, but on a much bigger scale. If you make driving reflect the costs to everyone.
Right. Driving cars costs society a lot of money and a lot of environmental impact that we sort of hide. It's difficult to have those conversations with people because I talk about this all the time, the amount of car marketing that is in our society basically makes us feel like cars are just part of the fabric of society. They've all, it's like God set the street design and God gave us cars to move around with. And now this is what we have, but it's not true. Car culture is reversible, and it's actually very expensive. It's a very classist form of transportation that it has been imposed on us in the last 60 or 70 years.
Well, I think this is a very intellectual way to introduce our guest, who is the admin of the bike commuting group on Facebook, Claire Wimp. Hey, Claire.
Hey there. Good evening. Nice to meet you guys virtually.
Now, Claire, you're in Olympia, Washington. Is that true?
So I grew up in Olympia, Washington. So I've been Northwest origins. Right now, I actually live in the Bay Area of California. So I've been West Coast my whole life.
Okay, West Coastin'. Same here.
That's right.
I don't know, Nick. Nick, you're from the East Coast, right?
My dad lived out here and my mom lived there, and so I was here in the summers. So I'm kind of bi-coastal. But Olympia, that's a good sounding place.
Yeah, it was a really, really bike-friendly location, actually. Despite the rain, everyone always says the Northwest is so rainy, but get a good set of rain gear and you're fine. I grew up commuting there ever since probably around second or third grade, either with my parents and then when I was old enough by myself, all the way through high school. And actually, that is where the bike commuting page on Facebook started. In Olympia, we had, I don't know if it's still called the same, but we had a wonderful public transit authority called Intercity Transit. And they were looking for ways to promote more bike commuting in the area. And they started up this thing where every month of May, they would have a bicycle commuter contest. And you would get a log to put your miles every day. It would only count if it was a commute mile. So you had to go from A to B. And you'd log those up over the month. And they would have prizes and coupons. Some were depending on how you performed. Others were just participatory. You got a cookie at the local bakery kind of thing. But it was great. And, I got really into it and ended up trying to encourage a bunch of my high school classmates to do it as well, and kind of friendly competition. And that's really the group on Facebook truly started as a community group for my high school friends that were doing that competition. And it stayed that way for a long time, probably the next 5 or 6 years. It was pretty much a group of 100 folks max. And about, 5 or 6 years ago now, it just started taking off. And I haven't really quite put my pin on exactly what triggered that. But as soon as you start getting more people joining and folks from different parts of the world joining, I think the Facebook algorithm starts doing magic and more people see it and think about joining it. And now we are over 6,000 people from around the world, almost every continent represented except maybe Antarctica. It's really cool as I, accept each of the people that join, because we do have like a firewall. I will, go through and say yes to every single person that joins. You see Malaysia, India, all over Europe, Russia, South America, Central America, and all over the US, Canada. I mean, it's just like, it's really neat.
And you individually approve each person?
Myself, as well as we have a couple moderators and 2 other admins. So I eventually had to start recruiting because it was too much for me to be the sole person to monitor comments on posts. And we don't approve the posts. We are open. If you're a member of the group, you can post. There's no approval process. We do have strict rules about, what we want you to post on. If you flagrantly ignore those, you'll probably find your post has disappeared. But yeah, every single person that joins gets put in kind of a queue, and then one of our admins or moderators, whoever gets to it first, will go through and approve it.
I think you have. I remember you having 8.5 thousand. And have you checked lately?
Was it really that high? Did I say 6,000? It's a Friday. My brain's fried. We might be actually that high. You probably have looked more recently than I have.
Well, I was bike commuting before COVID, and I would take. I mean, I had like seasons when I would do it. I mean, it didn't depend on the actual season, but I mean, personal seasons, where I would take 3 trains and on my Brompton and do like the first.
Oh, nice.
And so I understand. There's some great study that was referenced on Twitter recently by this woman, Jessica Roberts, who did research about bike commuting, and it said things like everybody hates their commute. This is a scientific study. Everybody hates their commute. I mean, she used the word everybody, except everybody who's in a car. And so I guess there's probably this worldwide agreement on that. And is that different in different places in the world that you found?
So I don't know that particular study that you're referencing. I would say a lot of the ways that people approach their commute, and I do see this on the group, it comes from a lot of different perspectives. So you've got like one demographic who has completely got rid of their car. Their only source of getting from point A to point B is a bike. Maybe occasionally they'll take like an Uber and a Lyft, but in this pandemic time, certainly like the only way they're getting around is by bike. And then you have other demographics, and I would consider myself as one of those. My husband and I have one vehicle, it's a Prius, and we chose that because it's a little more environmentally friendly. And we use that when we need to, and when we can, we also bicycle commute. Obviously, if we're not working on site, that's not necessary. So there's the folks that balance car and bicycle. There's a growing group of e-bikers who I think are trying to find a happy medium between a car and a bike. Maybe they feel like their commute's a little bit too long or maybe a bit too strenuous for them. They don't want to show up really sweaty to work. And they found the e-bike's a happy medium. And then you have folks that I think would primarily be car drivers, but use their bike whenever they have time or feel called to do it, and are just kind of more curious onlookers, maybe inspired by other people in the group who are more rigorous. So you asked about how people approach it in different parts of the world. I think it's important to think about those demographics when you consider the perspective that people are bringing, because if you don't have a car, you don't really have an option about hating or loving your commute. That's how you get places. I also think it has to do with where you are in the world, because infrastructure varies hugely. And any one of us, whether it's you two or anyone else that's listening, we know just from seeing pictures and reports. And if you join the bicycle commuter group, you'll see people post videos of kind of what their typical commute looks like. And I mean, if you're in, Mumbai or Bangkok, you're going to be dodging between tuk-tuks and cars and vehicles, and there is no bike lane and there is no sidewalk, and you're going to be kind of just weaving your way around, and you'll get your way around, and maybe you'll have fun while you do it. Whereas if you live in Iceland or Finland, there's entire thoroughfares that are exclusively for bicycles. So I think that when we talk about someone hating their commute or loving their commute or how they approach it, the experience of a bicycle commute is hugely different across the world, and certainly in the US as well. I mean, I could go into specifics, but.
Can I just read a couple of the things from this lit review? It's called the lit review. You're a scientist, right?
Yes, I'm a mechanical engineer.
You know what a lit review is?
Literature review.
Oh, like the things that are written. Like they did a review of the things that are written on this topic. That's what that means. Okay, right? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Here's what she said. She said, people who hate their commutes are less productive and report lower well-being. That's one. Two, people with long commutes hate their commutes. Secondarily, people who experience high variability or low control are also miserable. Okay, that's long commutes. But then she wrote, number three, people who bike are the only ones who like their commutes. Everybody else is just different shades of unhappy. This doesn't prove that cycling caused them to be happier, though. And there's several more points. Does that sound like it goes along with what you've picked up?
Yeah, I would say most people, I mean, they're not going to, we get a mix of posts of people that are like, oh, so frustrating today, this guy cut me off. In which case, maybe they aren't so happy with that morning's commute. But I would say the vast majority, they're posting to inspire, and kind of saying, I got to work 5 minutes faster this morning, and my speed was increased by X amount, and man, I feel really great. I don't even need my cup of coffee. I'm already woken up. That is a common sentiment, and it's one that I feel as well. When I do commute to work on either a bike or an e-bike, I have both, just for fun, I guess. There's definitely a feeling when you get to work of being like, yeah, like I've got my workout in this morning already. I'm ready to hit the ground running. I don't need to like take caffeine to wake myself up because I'm already alert. I'm ready to get to work right away. You feel more productive, I think. Now, this is all just circumstantial for me. But yeah, I would say from what I've seen on our post, people are generally, very happy that they're able to bike commute. For those maybe that live in places that have much worse bicycle infrastructure, that sentiment might be a little less positive, just because they might be more likely to encounter negative situations. Someone rolling down their window at a stop sign and yelling at them because, they think that they did something illegal, or they don't understand. A lot of drivers don't necessarily understand what the actual rules of the road are for cyclists.
Yeah.
I was lucky that when I was younger, I took, this was probably in 2011, the League of American Bicyclists was doing these workshops around the country for bicycle commuter training. And they kind of were just educating you about what your local rules of the road were. And I'll never forget when I did my driving test, which was a little after that, the instructor told me that I didn't cut my right turn tight enough. And she was going to mark me down for it. And I told her, if I cut that turn any tighter, I would have cut into the bicycle lane. And I'm not allowed to do that. I said, I know that for a fact because that's the rules of the road. And she gave me the points back. But I mean, like, that's a thing where it's like, even the person instructing me didn't understand that, like, that is a lane of traffic. The bike lane is a lane of traffic, at least the way that our laws view it in the United States. I can't speak to other countries as much, but, and if that's the case, certainly we have lots of drivers on the road that do not know how to properly interact. They'll take right turns without even looking to see if there's a cyclist in the way. And that's when accidents happen. So there's
I think you would qualify as something of an expert by now. If you're getting these streams from people all over the world for all these years that you've been doing it. So have you thought of using this to make studies, or would that not be the way you'd go about it?
I probably would not be the best person to run a study. Mechanical engineering training doesn't really teach you how to be an anthropologist or a sociologist. No. You'd want something in the social sciences for that. There's a lot of space to explore how people really feel after they do a commute or do a bike ride. I mean, we know that you get endorphins after you work out. That's been well understood science for a long time. So, I think it's a thing of getting someone on the bike for the first time. Honestly, it's so common in the US to fall into the habit of just taking a car to work every day. And I'm guilty of that frequently. If you get up a little late in the morning, I don't have time to pack my gear or pack a change of clothes. It's just easy to hop in the car. Because we have a culture in the US where car commute, as you guys were discussing at the beginning of this episode, that's the most common form of transportation. But in terms of, once you get somebody on a bike, once they have that first commute, I really feel like that's the turning point. They start feeling better. They start losing weight. You get stories every once in a while. If someone's like, I've lost 20 pounds over the last 6 months by commuting to work. And I've been trying to get weight off for the last 2 years. And who would have guessed I could have done it while I was commuting, that's really inspiring stuff.
You hear that a lot, right? Are there weight loss stories?
I mean, not every day, but we do see people post about that. And oftentimes when they post about it, someone else comments on the bottom and said, oh yeah, that was the same for me. I've been struggling with my weight for a while. This is a really good way for me to ensure that every day I'm getting a certain amount of, exercise in. And it doesn't have to be rigorous exercise. It's just something to get your heart rate elevated and, get you out. I'm consistently impressed by the distances some people commute to work. And they're biking as much as an hour and a half each way. But that's a great way to get a workout. And maybe if they drove it, it would be equally as long depending on traffic. So
yeah, it's funny that you mention coming to work and not needing coffee. I used to do a commute that was about an hour and a half, hour and 15, and end up at work and just feel amazing, and everybody else is like getting their coffee, and so it's pretty amazing. And the first part of that commute I didn't like because it was in traffic and everybody's crazy in the morning. And then once I got to the bike path, which was probably 2/3 of the ride remaining, it was just amazing. Meditation, workout, all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's pretty, yeah. Do you, on that forum, do you see people organizing for public comment in their local township? Do you see people sort of organizing to get bike lanes and bike infrastructure in the places of the world that don't have it yet? Like, for example, in Los Angeles, we have a lot of folks organizing for public comment to the city council or to the LADOT, et cetera, to hound them for bike infrastructure? Does that happen in your group? And does the group sort of participate, even though they may not be from that township?
Yeah, not as frequently as you might think. I feel like our group might be more of a forum for more just like community support and encouraging people to bike commute. There's a lot, I would say like probably the most common post is stuff about, people saying, oh, I tried out these bike gloves. They were like the best I've ever had. They're really good at, sub-zero temperatures. And people say, oh, cool, I have something similar. Or somebody asking, what's the best rain gear jacket to get for under $50 or, whatever. In terms of advocacy stuff, I see that less frequently. But one thing I've been trying to do, and hopefully by me doing it, I encourage others in other parts of the country, is when I do see legislation coming up in California, something that maybe is a petition, I will post that, adding a caveat on the front, if you're not from California, you probably don't care about this. And I have seen a couple other folks post about it. One other thing that I really do also love is people posting pictures of their infrastructure in their area. Just almost like an informative thing, like, hey, this is a really neat way that my town is handling a complicated intersection with, a multi-use pedestrian and bicycle paths. And that could be from around the world, and I've seen cities in the US that have done really cool stuff and people post about it. And sometimes they'll even tag their city in it, which I think is great, because if the city sees people promoting that stuff and saying, we really like this, we want more of this, all the better.
So do you have thoughts on the ideal infrastructure? I mean, I know that every place is different, but I feel like if, like we were talking about at the beginning, the Green New Deal really ought to have a transportation plan, and it can't just be every place is different. So we have like some common thing that we can push for?
So I think one of the things, I mean, I'm certainly not the first person to point this out, but protected bike lanes, I think, is a really big part of creating infrastructure. One that's accessible, and another that's family friendly. I've seen a lot of posts on Bicycle Commuter where people express concern about biking in areas that either don't have bike paths at all, or have bike paths, which is most common in the US, where you have sidewalk, parked cars, bike path, lane of traffic. I experienced this a lot when I was in grad school up in the East Bay Area. And I actually, similar to you, I was taking a train plus bike, and I had a huge stretch downhill where I didn't have a bike lane, and there were cars parked on my right and cars driving on my left. And, I had to kind of get over the fear of basically being about halfway into the lane of traffic, because if I hugged the parked cars, someone's going to open their door, and I'm just going to ram into that open door. It's called getting doored. And we've seen, I mean, people will occasionally post injuries they get from bike commuting on that group. And more often than not, it's because of somebody opening a door. So protected bike lanes, I think, are huge, because what they do is they put the parked car as the barrier between bicycle and traffic. And so you have, then now you have sidewalk, bike lane, parked car, traffic. We've been starting to get some of those in downtown San Jose. And I think that's because bike advocates in our area have been pushing for that. That, I think, is something that absolutely can get pushed to other parts of the United States. We have ways of doing that now. It's just a matter of it's repainting the lines. It's swapping the cars for the bike lane and shifting things a little bit. So that's huge.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to happen.
Yeah, they do those here in LA. They kind of you really need to take out a lot of parking to make sure that there's no blind spots at driveways. Totally. The way that the Netherlands would do it, yeah. But those are slowly but surely getting implemented here, I guess, here and there.
And you're always going to have people that will complain about getting those parking spots removed. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, pre-pandemic and certainly in the next year or so, Uber and Lyft have replaced the need for a lot of that parked car space anyways. If I'm going up to San Francisco, and I can avoid having to bring my car with me to park it, I will either bike and take public transit, or I'll take an Uber or a Lyft. And I'm not uncommon in that. And certainly in other cities around the US, you see things like that. So the shift to infrastructure with that protected huge. And when you have families who are comfortable and feel that it's safe to take their kids out bike commuting with them, we're all going to go to the grocery store, or we're all going to bike together to the movie theater to go to a movie rather than hopping in the car. Suddenly you have kids now that are building up that tolerance and that comfort level of being on a bike and having cars moving around them. And that's huge. The reason I'm still a bike commuter today is because my dad took me out on his bike and showed me what it's like and explained the rules of the road and got me comfortable with that.
So you got a lot of people posting about their kids community?
Yeah, we've seen, people asking about recommendations for what kinds of bike trailers to have, for kids that are too young to have their own bicycles. Or you'll see I don't know if you guys probably see these in LA too, but they're like cargo bikes plus saddles for kids. So they kind of like straddle the back seat. So we'll see people making recommendations or reviews after using those. So there's definitely a sub community within our group of parents that encourage their kids to bike, and it's really fun. It's cool to see. Sometimes I'll post a picture. Oh, I just taught my daughter how to change a flat tire, and I'm like, hey, I remember my dad doing that to me too. It's stuff like that. It is one of the greater things about having these communities, and I probably see that more in European countries where families will bike together. I think it's growing in the United States, which is awesome. But I probably do see that more in Europe.
The tandem bike is like is an uncelebrated single person bike. Like I have this tandem bike that I ride sometimes just to go to the grocery store, and I like it because I can hang bags off the back handlebars. And every once in a while somebody needs a ride or whatever, and I'll throw them on the back of the bike, drop them off. And I think, and cargo bikes are the same way. Cargo bikes, that's you see those when I was out in the Netherlands riding, you see kids, like 3 or 4 kids, in bucket bikes and cargo bikes, and it's amazing what people do.
Yeah. Well, and the point about going grocery shopping, we've had I think some of my favorite threads on there is someone goes, hey, what's the best backpack to wear when riding a bike? And you'll get some heated response. Never wear a backpack riding a bike. Always use panniers.
Because it causes back problems, right?
Well, I think more people are just, it's sweaty and uncomfortable if it's a long commute. Maybe there are back problems as well. I'm not a doctor, but yeah, and then you'll get all these, side comments. Oh, I love these panniers. I love these panniers. And it reminds me of when I first bought my Ortlib panniers, which are these waterproof. They're practically wet sacks because I was in Washington State, and it was, that was a good way to go for me. And I used to get cases of rice milk. I'm dairy free, so I would buy it in bulk, and I'd fill both my panniers saddlebags with probably 20 pounds worth of cartons of this, because I'd get a case worth. And I'd be biking home with an additional, So grocery shopping with biking, I think it's fun. And people post pictures about it.
People will say that's their number one thing. Oh, I can't go grocery shopping. I'm like, I've done 8 bags of groceries hanging off the handlebars on my tandem with a watermelon. And I have some Ortlieb bags too. One time I was, you're hungry and you buy too much food. I totally did that. And I was like, how am I going to put this on my bike? And it was just so easy. Just put it on the handlebars.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you'll see people. I don't think it was this year, but I think a couple of years ago, someone posted about putting their entire Thanksgiving dinner on their bike. They're like, yep, I got the turkey in this pannier, and I got, the cranberry sauce in this one. And it was good to go.
Totally.
Are you ever no, you're in the wrong group to people?
We will occasionally have folks that are thinking more biking, as opposed to bicycle biking. And we've kind of drawn a little gray area with e-bikes, because I do think that there's a different mindset going into like, I'm going to use an e-bike, because you're still pedaling. It's a pedal assist situation. And I think there's a little more mindset of like, I'm still out here, at least for some sustainability or benefit to the planet kind of a thing. Motorbikes are not, they're motorcycles effectively. So yeah, occasionally we'll be like, hey dude, like don't post your mud bike video like in our group.
Don would do that.
Yeah.
I
So
was just going off the look on your face, Don. You're like, well, I have one of those, right? No?
I am currently rebuilding a motorcycle engine.
nice.
Because I think
Yeah.
I still like I think that Los Angeles in particular needs a scooter slash this is a low power, this is like a 90cc, but it's like if we had some kind of a scooter revolution here with the e-bikes, the bicycles, and some low power scooters, it would be amazing here. You know, we don't need to be driving these 4-passenger cars all over the place with one person in them.
Yeah.
So
does Facebook have like a breakout feature where Los Angeles people can talk to each other?
There is a new feature. I have not tested it on Facebook groups where you can do breakout rooms in the way that you can do Facebook chat rooms now. I want to say it came out in the last few months, but I mean, theoretically, any member of our group could go on there and create an active breakout room, and anybody in the group could join in and chat, video chat live. I've not tested that feature yet, but good. I don't know if there's a way you could like, maybe you'd name it like LA chat room or something and see who can join. But
Are you going to break out into Instagram or any other like Twitter?
for bicycle commuter?
Yeah.
It's not in the plans right now. I like Twitter and Instagram are so like singular, you know, you are the active poster going out. I much prefer the Facebook environment where, you know, I'm sort of facilitating posts and occasionally I will post my own posts, but the vast majority of posts, you know, probably anywhere from 15 to 25 posts a day on that group are coming from around the world. And I think it's that crowdsourcing that's really, really valuable. And I learn a lot from it too, you know, seeing both the successes and struggles of people. I know I mentioned to you guys when we were chatting earlier about this that, you know, we get unexpected controversy about stuff. You have intergenerational bikers that have very different perspectives on what the norm or the okay way to bike commute is. Probably the single most contentious issue is the use of a helmet. And I would say the consensus varies greatly from where you are in the world, because in areas, for example, like the Netherlands, not wearing a helmet is pointless because you're in a thoroughfare entirely to cyclists all yourself, and nobody's really going super duper fast. It's not a race, and it's crowded enough you couldn't even really go wanted to. So everyone's just kind of chugging along, and wearing a helmet.
And the cars are actually driving reasonable speeds even when there is mixed modes. The cars are usually around 20 25 miles per hour, so yeah.
And the culture of biking in those areas means, kind of getting back to my earlier point of whether or not drivers are familiar with the rules of the road for cyclists. If everybody in that country has bike commuted one day in their life, they're going to be a better, friendlier driver to the bike commuters. And in a lot of those countries, it's more than one day in their life that everyone's done it, and so, yeah, the interaction there may not necessitate a helmet. But in the US, I think there's a lot of situations in which, personally, I think that a helmet's very necessary. Certainly the, powers that be, the League of American Bicyclists and many local groups recommend for safety reasons that you wear a helmet and that kids wear a helmet. But oh boy, you get some really contentious comments from people being like, I don't want to be a sissy, I'm a strong guy, I can handle it, I just know how to follow the rules. And, or even comments being like, well, if someone hits me, like, so be it, it's my day to die. And, it's very interesting because you get a lot of very independently minded folks that are out there because they like being on their bike and doing their thing and not having to follow rules necessarily. It's an interesting dynamic, and I have continually been shocked by the, ferocious arguments that erupt when somebody posts something related to wearing a helmet, whether it's like a law that was passed in their city requiring helmet usage. And somebody goes, oh my God, if that happens in my city, I'm never riding a bike again. It's that one.
It's like having the government on your head is what it was the funny way I've heard it put.
Yeah.
I can understand it. It's not made for a high-speed car collision. Like if
Correct.
you get creamed by a car, a little foam hat on your head isn't going to do anything. It's really made for like you personally just falling off your bike and slamming your head on the ground or something like that. If you get smashed into at 40 miles per hour by a car, maybe your head will survive, but there's going to be a whole lot of other injury. So, when the government gets involved and says you have to wear a helmet, that's usually about all they're going to do, and then they said, well, we took care of it. We made a helmet law. So
it's
now biking is safe.
The discussion isn't always even, should we have a helmet law? I think there's a lot of consensus about how we shouldn't, because it actually keeps a lot of people from biking, which can make biking less safe because there's fewer people on the road.
Right.
But, yeah.
These are all arguments that are made, so you can understand
Yeah.
how people like Dale. I'm really glad you brought up the thing about people pointing out that, like, is a helmet really even going to save you in most scenarios? And certainly there's lots of side tangents on that when helmets come up, and then same as Nick, the point of being like, well, why do we even need helmet laws? It's like cities think if they put a helmet law in place, then they can wash their hands of all bike related issues and they've solved it.
Right.
And that's not true. And the barrier to biking, there's barriers to driving as well. But, if you say like, you're not allowed to ride a bike unless you wear a helmet, what are you going to do with, low income folks whose only source of transportation is a bike, and having a helmet is not something they can afford? It's a reality. So yes, you can see where that gets contentious.
I would wear a helmet in more places if there weren't like a social stigma. I mean, even not on my bike, I would just wear it to the supermarket. What if something falls on my head? I feel like...
Well, that's another argument, is that statistically car drivers experience head injuries more than cyclists, is what
car helmets.
I was reading. Yeah, so they need to wear helmets.
Why not?
That's always a favorite comeback when a driver is talking. Why don't we get the social media handles that we can... Okay,
Yep.
So the group is Bicycle Commuters.
The group is
on
Bicycle
Facebook.
Commuter on
Bicycle
Facebook.
Commuter.
Or Bicycle
on
Commuter
Facebook.
on Facebook. Yes. So please feel free to join. It's a great community with lots of great tips. If you ever have curiosities, you've got everyone from the casual bicycle commuter to I own a bike shop in that group, and they are there to help encourage you to be a more active bicycle commuter. So
Awesome. I love
really
that
do
it's
appreciate you guys.
international, too.
Yeah, and it's all over the world, which is incredible and such an interesting way to explore something that truly is universal. So thank you for the opportunity to chat. It's been really fun talking to you guys and learning a bit more about LA bike infrastructure. So that's cool.
Yeah, it got a little wonky and nerdy in there, but
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm a mechanical engineer. You can't get much more wonky and nerdy than that.
There we go. All right, Claire, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll have you back if you would be so kind in the future, and we'll get some more updates from you.
Sounds great.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
I rise in the morning and greet the day. Pull out the bike and I'm on my way. The transportation shows I care. Every turn of the pedal cleans the air. Green in the green, I'm saving the planet. Just like my friends Dale, Sean, Toby, and Janet. No greenhouse gas, a tiny carbon footprint up your ass. I'm on a motherfucking bike. I'm on a motherfucking bike.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bike Talk. If you want to hear more, go to kpfk.org, navigate to programs, and choose Bike Talk. On the Bike Talk page, click on the archives link to play or download shows posted in the last 4 months. go to biketalk.com and copy or click on the RSS link to subscribe. Our Twitter handle is BikeTalkPFK. On Facebook, we are Bike Talk. You can become friends and join our group.